welcome to the Spotlight series. On today's episode, we have Darcy Smyth, who is bestseller. Woohoo! Congratulations on your new book, Darcy.
Thank you, Renee.
Darcy is the lead trainer and creator of the Tonal Persuasion Method for sales. It's a methodology designed to ensure business owners are closing a higher and higher quality and quantity of sales without needing to refer back to the hard sell. No one likes a hard sell.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Welcome, Darcy. So great to have you here today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I've seen your name around a lot, Renee. I've seen a lot of what you're doing, and it's an honour to be part of your podcast. So thank you. Yeah,
well, thanks for being here. So I'm really excited to talk about this topic because having been in the coaching industry for 17 years, I know that, I think it's something like the statistics are horrid really in this industry, but something like 98% of coaches never make it. It's really crazy. And a lot of the, one of the main reasons is they really fall down when it comes to sales. So I'm so excited to get your perspective on this because I know this is your juice, your zone of genius, and I know you've got lots of value to add. So really looking forward to getting into it. But before we do that, congratulations again on your book, Some Things Never Change, a bestseller. How does it feel?
Yeah, good. I mean, it's just cool to have it done and out there and everything like that. The main thing I've noticed very quickly on the book is I'm a very creative person in business, but in terms of actually creative, artistic writing sort of stuff, I do a lot of writing, but this is the first book ever released. And I think the main learning from it all has been once you actually create something and put it out there, it's no longer yours anymore. I've really enjoyed that learning. So I've enjoyed actually getting it out there to people.
Yeah. It's quite surreal, isn't it? It's like, okay, this is my thing and it's out there in the world and now what?
It's cool. I mean, it's just cool to know that you've done everything that you can and then it's up to people to have their opinions about it, love it, hate it, share it, not share it, throw it in the fire, throw it in the bin, give it to whoever they want. It's not yours anymore, it's kind of weird, but I also like going through that learning as well.
Yes. Yeah. Brilliant. Great.
Most people have loved it, by the way. I'll just add that.
Just add that. Yeah. I'm sure nobody has burned your book, Darcy. That's outrageous.
Yeah.
Never been done before. All right. So tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, for sure. So I like to frame this story with basically anyone who's heard me on a podcast before will have heard this before, but the idea, Renee, that people are either going to be very scared by the next sentence or absolutely love it, which is I've always been, I think from the age of 10, I picked up my first book or watched my first DVD on the human brain, and I watched two neurons connect. Right, I saw a message be somehow passed between one neuron to another, and from there I was literally dangerously obsessed with human behavior. I love it. I love it so much. It is the most fascinating thing in this world is the way the human brain exists and how it interacts with itself. So basically from the youngest of ages, I decided I always wanted to study psychology. I always wanted to go and know more about the brain. And so I went to study psychology and psychophysiology at Swinburne Uni here in Melbourne. Shout out to all the Swinburne alumni listening. There's not many of us. So from there, I loved that course. And then from there, I went to do a coaching course, which I loved even more because it was all about the human behavior of decision making as well. From there, I went into a sales role, selling the human development and personal development programs and the psychological programs that I was learning. So I was learning it from both ends, which was pretty cool. And from there, I decided, and I always knew I wanted to be in my own business. Sales is almost a form of that sometimes, running your own business because you're finding your own leads and you're doing all the work there. But from there, I always knew after 2 years of doing that, I was like, I want to jump back into my own business. I want to be helping people learn how to sell. I just had a bit of a knack for it. I just knew what needed to be said to get people to make a decision. I knew the psychology behind it. I knew why they were making the decisions. I knew why they were coming up with the objections they were coming up with. I just had a knack from it. I was probably from watching all those DVDs when I was a 10-year-old. But from there, I decided I wanted to actually get into sales training and teaching people the specific psychology behind why it is people make the decisions that they do or don't make the decisions that they don't. And from there, the Tonal Persuasion Method for sales was born. It was a methodology born out of how do I create the psychology around this and do it in a way that is different to the way everyone has done it before? And from there, it's been a 2-year journey to this point, almost to the day. The Tonal Persuasion Method for Sales was created almost 2 years ago, practically 2 years ago to the day.
Happy birthday, happy anniversary.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a phenomenal ride ever since. I've absolutely loved it, worked with incredible people and run some pretty awesome events in Melbourne and across Australia. So it's just awesome, Renee. I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I have these days to be able to deliver this content.
Yeah, fantastic. So you mentioned your methodology, the Tonal Persuasion Method. So tell us about it. Can give us an overview.
Sure. So when I got into sales training, the main thing that you can't do as a coach, for those coaches listening, coaches and thought leaders listening, is you can't be like everyone else, because you'll become part of the 98%. So you need to do something that is completely different to what the rest of the market is offering. And for me, that was the idea that in sales or in our communication, it's something like 5 times more powerful our tonality is than the words that we actually use in terms of getting a message across. And so I wanted to be able to create a methodology that taught people that side of it, the use of tonality in order to create rapport with the person that they're using. And I knew everything about the psychology behind it. I had the models behind me. I knew everything, all the coaching models that we learn. I knew it all, and I applied it to a methodology called the Tonal Persuasion Method for Sales, which essentially helps people sell without having to revert back to the hard sell. It's using your tonality to persuade, and also using very persuasive problem-solving concepts to help people make a very solid decision with you moving forward.
Great. So when you're talking about tonal, are you talking about the tone of my voice?
Tonality of voice. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Can you give us some examples?
Absolutely, I can. So, I mean, the best one to always refer back to, I think, is particularly in the Australian market. We're not very rah-rah. We don't like to be hard sold at. We don't want to be forced into our decisions, right? So one of the most powerful tonalities that you can actually use in sales is what we refer to in the Tonal Persuasion Method for Sales as the fair player. The fair player, Renee, is very much the tonality that I'm using right now. It's me, it's you. We'll just see if we can find a great decision. We'll see what works, and whatever doesn't work, we'll find a way to make work. How does that sound to you? Right? And it's a very fair tonality. There's no way that you can completely disagree with it. It's very hypnotic in nature, and is very easy to agree with, right? And once you actually implement a tonality like that, it's amazing what you can say to help people realize that, yes, you actually are a very good person that I want to deal with and do business with, not necessarily just based on what you're saying or the words that you're using. Very powerful stuff. Fascinating.
Yeah, right. So is that it, you say that that's the fair player? Are there other kind of types that you've got there to refer to?
Sure. There's the action taker, which is very much the Tony Robbins type of tonality. Very loud and let's go, Renee. Let's do it. Come on, let's go. And it's very loud, and it causes people to have cause action in front of them, right? So it causes them to create a different perception in their mind of who you are as a salesperson and what essentially you're trying to sell. There's the jester that tries to make everyone laugh. There's the keeper of gold that always has a bit of a secret. And there's very just different types of ways that you use tonality to actually persuade. It's very cool.
Yeah, great. So these are the different types. So how does this fit into? Because I'm fascinated by models and methodologies. So I'm trying to make a picture in my mind. Is there an infographic for the Tonal Persuasion Method?
There is actually. I can send that through to you, but. Essentially the way it turns into a model is there's 6 selling archetypes. So 6 tonal selling archetypes that people can use that are referred to as selling archetypes simply because they help you to sell. And then there's 4 non-selling archetypes, which unfortunately people are doing every day and turning away buyers because of it without even realizing it. And they're the 4 non-selling archetypes, and named that way because unfortunately they do turn people away.
Okay, so what are those? Because I'm sure none of our listeners would ever employ any of these non-selling archetypes.
Yeah, just like me and you, we've never done this, right? We've never done this. We're perfect. So
in every possible way.
That's it. The non-selling archetypes, I often joke that I'm going to struggle when I start to pitch this into the US, because one of the non-selling archetypes is called the jock. And in Australia, a jock is like an arrogant person sort of thing. We're arrogant, we're over the top, we think we're better than everyone else. But in America, of course, a jock is a very athletic person. They're quite a respected person in America, so I need to be careful of that. So that's the first one. The jock is almost like the action taker, but taken too far. They're too arrogant. They're too
egocentric. Yeah.
Egocentric, yeah. And we can all imagine the tonality when we've heard it. We all know an arrogant person when we hear them, right? The next one is...
And I've never dated any of those, just for the record.
Yes, absolutely. So the next one, of course, is the pushover, which is someone that is very... their tonality is very, very low. They're not sure of themselves. They're very uncertain. And quite often, if a buyer says, I can't afford that, they'll believe them and say, yep, you're right. Okay, it's not for you. Maybe if we connect again in, say, 3 months, how does that sound? And it's very weak. It's a pushover type of tonal archetype because it can be pushed over so easily. And unless they actually build the confidence within themselves, if the seller doesn't build the confidence within themselves, they miss out on a lot of sales simply because they lack certainty, which is the ultimate thing that people want to buy into when they're actually buying. Right.
Yes. Not to quote Tony. Well, okay, I will quote Tony Robbins because one of his favourite sayings: "He with the most certainty wins."
That's exactly right. 100%. And so another one, for example, would be the let's go with the detective. So the detective is someone that feels as though their tonality is, Renee, where did you get that shirt? Do you like it? Did you pay what you want for it or what? Is it good or are we going to get another one or what's the go, right? I'm very much taking that to its extreme. No one actually does that in a sales conversation, but I'm telling you, if you let 10% of that detective tonal archetype pop into your sales conversations, people pick up on it, they're scared by it, and they feel pushed up against a corner and they don't want to buy. And once you know about these non-selling tonal archetypes, you can identify them within yourself and immediately remove them, which is critical.
Yeah. Yeah, great. So I've got the jock, the pushover, the detective, and...
the next one is the desperate pleader. I'll explain, but whenever I say this one, everyone laughs. Yeah. I love it that everyone already knows everyone knows this salesperson. Again, it's the please, I need you. Renee, please, would you buy my program? But I'll lower the price for you, or I'll add in extra stuff for you. Please, just... come on, you'll love it. You'll love it. I promise you'll love it. And it's very desperate. It's gross. And again, it scares buyers away.
Yeah. Wow.
Again, we spend 2 days going deeper and deeper into these tonal archetypes over a live event. It gets quite interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, fantastic. So is there one, of the 6 selling archetypes, am I right in thinking that the fair player is the one that you...
In Australia specifically, it's very interesting, Renee, that in different countries, different tonal archetypes are favoured and some are turned away. However, I would suggest that in Australia, everything is a fair deal. You don't want to be a tall poppy. You don't want to outshine the master. None of this wants to happen, or Australians don't want this to happen typically. It's very much within our
culture.
It's within our culture. And you'll never meet an Australian that wouldn't agree with that, even though they would prefer, many entrepreneurs and business owners would prefer if tall poppy weren't a thing, but the matter of the fact is that it is. So a lot of Australians want a fair deal. They want to know that they're dealing with a personable person, a mate, right? And essentially in sales, the fair player tonal archetype, if you can implement that into your sales game, be very, it's me, it's you, let's see if we can find a great decision here moving forward, then you're going to sign a lot of sales moving forward that you might have let slip through your fingers previously.
Yeah, great. So can you give me a bit of an overview of how a sales conversation might go using this fair player archetype?
Well, absolutely. I think one of the best examples is when an objection comes up. And so, for example, Renee, I want to do this, but now's not the time. Okay, so I'm really keen. I can't do it now. I can't fit it in. All right.
Yeah.
Now, typically, I'll give you the contrast first. Typically, without knowing about Tonal Persuasion Method, without knowing about the fair player tonality, and without knowing about the fair player approach to things, quite often people would go, objection. All right, I need to overcome that. I need to get around that. I need to show them, I need to change their thinking to show them that that's not the case. Or I need to essentially show them how this can be different. Now, what people run themselves into, or the corner they run themselves into, is the threat of telling someone that the way they see the world is wrong, which is the last thing that anyone wants to hear in a sales conversation. So you can never overcome an objection by telling someone you're wrong. In fact, this is how it actually is. And you just kill the sale, right? So a fair player says, absolutely, I get it. I see where you're coming from. How about we, not you and I, not you're wrong and I'm right. It's how about we take a look at this together and see what we can find to make sure that the result is achieved for you. It may not happen now. Maybe it is later, but I want to make sure that if we can do it now, that we do, because otherwise you're going to just run into this problem later down the line as well, but it just might be a little bit bigger next time around, right? And by framing it that way, it's me and you on a team, Renee. We're going to find out absolutely if it is in the future that this needs to happen. If you really do need to put this off until 3 months from now, so be it. But I want to make sure that we do cover all bases first to make sure that we're not just tricking ourselves there. How does that sound to you?
Sounds great.
Sounds very fair. Of course it's very fair. It's me and you and we're on a team. Yeah?
Yeah, right. Yeah, interesting.
Love it.
So, yes. And so, okay, so you say that culturally that's very specific to Australia. So, okay, let's say for our US listeners, we do have them. Hello, America. So what would be the preferred archetype for our US listeners?
Yeah, a lot of action taker, a lot of Tony Robbins, a lot of very Gary Vaynerchuk type tonalities. It's fast-paced, it's action, it's happening now or it's not happening at all, right? And this emotionally stirs people up, like in a positive way. It gets them very excited and very emotional, and a lot of the time it can cause people to buy. This is why in the middle of NBA games, everyone's being pumped up the whole time, and there's never a dull second, because the more people are pumped up, the more they buy hot dogs, right? So it's just the way things work. So the action taker absolutely is a big one. And also what's referred to as the keeper of gold. The keeper of gold archetype, Renee, is one that draws people in. So it's a lot quieter, and it almost suggests that I've got something hidden here that I want to show you. And if we want to have a conversation about it, I can actually show you how this works. All right. And it draws people in. It draws in people's curiosity, and again, stirs up emotion, but in a much more subtle and secretive way that people want to buy into. They're like, you've got a thing that I don't know about and you can show it to me, please. I'd love to know.
Yeah. And so you're talking about that. Is that secret revealed in the sales conversation, or are you holding back and only showing them once they've paid you money?
No, secret is revealed in the sales conversation for sure.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Sure. I think that doing it the other way is quite manipulative.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was kind of thinking. We're not talking about manipulation here, are we?
No,
Good.
no.
Glad we're on the same page.
Yeah, I probably should give an example. The best example of that, Renee, would be, okay, so, I'm a sales mentor, so I do sales training, right? So I might say something to a client like, okay, I hear that that's your problem and that's what's going on. Keeper of Gold kicks in and says, so I'm curious, have you considered sales mentoring before? Bit of silence. And then their brain goes, no, I hadn't. What's involved with that? And so it's almost like there's sales mentoring. It sounds like there's a hidden thing to that. Like there's something I'm not seeing about sales mentoring that I probably should have seen by now. Is that the answer to my problems? I don't know. Let's find out. And so it allows you to gear the conversation back to your service and what you can offer whilst still making it about them.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And is Canada different again?
Good question. I would find Canada to be a nice mix between Australia and America. After traveling Canada, they're very, as Australians, we get on with Canadians really well. So I think there is a lot of that mateship that goes on, but also they're going to be highly impacted by the country that is right on their doorstep, which is America. So it'd be probably a good mix between the two.
Yeah. And what about our friends over in the UK?
Over in the UK is very much the calculator archetype.
Ooh.
Right, so the calculator archetype is, remember before how I said to you, the detective of where'd you get the shirt? Do you like it or not? You know, this is the detective. The selling version of that is the calculator, which is, Renee, where did you get your shirt?
Yeah. I don't know where I got my shirt.
Okay, so do you remember when you got it, or? And it's asking questions, but again, it's in a very curious manner, and it's not pushing you up against a wall to force you.
Yeah.
It's on inside as opposed to pushing you up against a wall.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, interesting. Great. And is there much variation around Europe as well?
Not that I can specifically say right now. In terms of, this sort of stuff is, you can go deep into this stuff about different countries and things like that. But I don't know. For right now, I suppose that those would probably be the best examples that show you how the tonal archetypes can be split into different countries.
Yeah. Around the world in tonal archetypes.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, great. So, I mean, I think we've probably touched on where you see coaches and thought leaders getting it wrong, and that would be those 4 non-selling archetypes. But are there like specific scenarios and examples that you see over and over and over again where you're just like, coaches, will you just stop it?
Yeah. Good question. It's this is preaching to the choir as far as it goes, but I know that the coaches that are most successful appreciate that the fact that they are salespeople and marketers first and coaches second, instead of believing that they can run a business through being a great coach first and then sales and marketer second, right? If you're in business as a business person. A business person values sales and marketing before anything else because they understand the core truth that sometimes people aren't ready to hear this truth, unfortunately. But the truth of the matter is that business exists for one reason. Business exists for one reason only, and that is to make money. Right? Businesses exist to build capital. That's why they're here. How they go about that is secondary, right? So how we go about it is being a coach, but how we build a business first is being great at sales and marketing. And I think that there would be plenty of coaches out here that go, no, I don't reckon. And
I can hear the shackles going up.
Yeah.
I can hear it,
Yeah.
I know exactly the response that a lot of people will have to that because, no, I'm a coach because I want to make a difference and I'm a change maker and that's who I am. And yes, and if you're not making sales and putting food on the table, you won't be doing that for very long.
Not much change can be made.
Yeah.
And so it is a really core truth. It's why I'm so happy to just say it, even though I know that it might offend some people or some people go, nah, that's not the case. I reckon I can do it different to that. Please let me know how you're going in 12 months because I know what the results will be. I've worked with thousands of coaches, trainers, thought leaders. This pattern emerges so often that they believe that because they're passionate enough, they'll be okay. And it's simply not the case. If they're passionate about sales and marketing, I believe they'll be okay because they'll find a way to do great sales and marketing. If they're passionate about a coach, that's the icing on the cake, as opposed to people believing that they're a great coach and that's enough and sales and marketing will be the icing on the cake. It's just not the case.
Yeah.
And the sooner people understand and realize that, the sooner they can get on with making the change that they do want to make to the world because they're using it as a vehicle to make money for themselves as well. Which is okay, by the way. You can make money if you'd like.
You will not go to hell if you make money. Yeah. Now, coaches, if you're still out there with those, limiting beliefs about money, please go deal with them.
Yeah.
Because, we'd never have any coaches who have that stuff going on.
Yeah, that's it.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Darcy. I've really loved hearing about the 6 selling archetypes and the 4 non-selling archetypes. And of course, I've never been guilty of any of those.
Yeah, neither. Absolutely.
No. So thank you. It's really fabulous. If you could share just a final hot tip, what's something that coaches can go away and implement right now in their business, what would that be?
Yeah, for sure. So, the first thing I'll say is if people do want actual videos and resources on those archetypes themselves,
great.
To go check out tonalpersuasionmethod.com. It's content sitting there waiting for you to just have if you're interested to go for it.
Excellent, great. And we will put the link in the show notes.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, thank you. So there's that. The next thing is that go out there and just understand that your sales conversations in terms of the way that you're having them that's the key to actually growing your business and so if it's a 6-figure business you want, you need to go out there and make 6 figures worth of sales. And a lot of the time for people listening to this that are scared of sales or are unsure about it, I can tell you right now, you don't need to buy any book. You don't need to come to my training. You don't need to do any of that to begin with. You just need to go out there, stuff it up, make the mistakes, have the conversations that are uncomfortable. We like to say in the TPM room, Renee, that the sales you're not making are sitting in the conversations you're not having. So go out there, stuff it up, get uncomfortable, do that once a day. And then by the time it comes along that you want to upgrade yourself, you've given yourself a fantastic foundation to build from. So I suppose the absolute implementation, Renee, is go out there and implement. Go out there and have the conversations and stuff it up. You'll be glad you did.
Yeah, great. And so just in saying that, because, well, who am I going to, I can think coaches are thinking, well, but who am I going to call? So what do you say to those coaches who are like, I don't know who to call?
Yeah, absolutely. So that probably comes from marketing, right? So that's a marketing conversation to be had. How do you develop inbound marketing? And the answer to that is make sure you are solving problems for people in a way that makes it all about them. So if you're in business as a coach, no one cares because that's all about you. You are a coach. Good for you. That doesn't give anyone any value. The value that you give is solve problems through your coaching methodologies. That's the switch that needs to be made. And that is when the phone starts ringing you as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, I love that. And you touched on, what I love is having a coaching methodology. And if you haven't already developed your intellectual property and you haven't got your system and your framework all mapped out, then I urge you to do it, because I believe, and one of the biggest changes for me in my business was having that intellectual property asset, having that methodology. I'm selling a methodology. I'm not selling me. You're not buying me. You're buying this methodology, and I will deliver it. But, this is a proven system. And I think that's a key. I'll try not to rant and take over here, but.
No, that's spot on, Renee. You're so right. I mean, people are at point A, they want to get to point B, and the system helps them get there, as opposed to, hi, I'm Darcy, a coach. The two are completely different worlds in terms of languaging how to create sales and marketing for yourself.
Yeah. Sales is so much easier when you've got a system.
Yeah, 100%. Really well said. Yep, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. We've been talking with Darcy Smyth from the Tonal Persuasion Method. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Renee. I appreciate it.
Editing could be boring, but not with me.